All right. Welcome to Conversations, A Soul's Journey with Robin Modafferi and Betty Hammack. Robin is a messenger for spirit to share much needed information to our world. Robin, thank you so much for sharing what we're going to be experiencing.
Oh, Betty, it's so nice to have you here. So I realized that some of the topics that we wanted to cover was how to connect to your higher self or your I am present. And then later we're going to start a conversation on walk-ins, and this should be quite fun. But before we get started, I'd just like to do a really brief connection, an opportunity for us to go into ourselves a little bit. And I know that most of you probably have already been working this morning, or you're a little ahead of me since I'm 3 hours behind out here on the West. So if you could just take a few deep breaths for me, please. Breathing in all the way down into your bellies and out. Getting a fix on your body and just acknowledging that you're really present and here participating today with us. I'd like you to just kind of feel your shoulders and move them around a little bit and let them relax. Most of us have been running around either working or just preparing or getting ready for this or tending to our families, and we're just moving into a space right now of connecting deeply, letting everything, all the tensions and stresses of the morning fall away. Take another deep breath, please, and let your energies just fall all the way into the earth. Grounding all of your energies into the center of the earth, feel the heart of her and us connecting. After the energies of these past few days, the full moon, the eclipse, 5/5 being love and change, the portals that have opened, the amazing shifts with the Wesak energies. We have so many supportive energies and beautiful frequencies that are assisting us today to open the doors to these conversations of understanding deeper and deeper levels of our soul, and to actually become participants. Feel your belly just soften. All the energies, any place in your body you still may feel tight, just let it relax. Your chest rise and fall softly, letting all of the tension go away. Your breath becomes very gentle, very soft. And let your spine and your back relax. All tension, all stress, all anxiety just melt away. And one more deep breath and we'll just relax all the way. Each and every one of us connecting now in our heart, in the deepest places in the chasm that is fully light within us. feeling one another's presence, weaving ourselves into each other's hearts and minds, creating a space of love that is open and receptive to learning, to wisdom, to understanding and compassion. There are many things we will discuss today, but more than that, we ask you to be open to the experiential energies, those that may be able to speak to you in the subtle places of your being, in the quantum universe of your soul. This is a very sacred time and a beautiful conversation. And so with that, take one more deep breath. And release. Know how much you are loved and feel how much you are appreciated. And so is your presence here with us today. Welcome. So, to get started with the conversation on our connection to our higher self and how we go about that, I was just wondering if there was any place in particular that you thought that we might start, Betty. Is there any sort of focus or question or awareness that you had from the information you and I have shared about where you'd like to start or open the door today?
I think the most important thing for me was understanding the soul as pure energy from source and an aggregation of that energy. And then because the soul is always there, how it's like as a human being, the connection seems to be very important. And how do we acknowledge and actually go forward as being that instrument, that vehicle, that embodiment to maximize our experience in this earthly plane?
Oh, that's a good question. Very well put. And that does help me a lot to get sort of honed into a space so that I can address where we are in this now. So first of all, knowing that everything is love, we're going to use that as the center core of this conversation on the soul. And I may approach it a little bit differently than some might expect. And of course, most of you who know me can probably expect it would always be different. And that is that in my experience and from our knowing and from the place in our heart where we want to present this information, we'd like to suggest that there really is no actual way to go about connecting to the higher self. Okay, and what I mean by that is that there's no absolute rote way to do this. There's no how-to or an absolute that every single being falls into this or comes upon this in their own guidance in the way that is exclusive to them. But having said that, there are some things that are rote within the process or the procedure of us coming into an experience with our higher self. And that is that with each and every one of us, there comes a time where it is the moment of the soul awakening. In other words, you've had promptings, you've felt compelled, you've started asking yourselves the questions and maybe even starting to search a bit for understanding as to why we're here, what we're about, what we're not about. making steps or strides towards reading materials or looking or searching outside of yourself. But the deeper questions are about who you are and learning how to forgive yourself. Most of us, when we come to a place where we're starting to reach outside of ourselves for the highest part of us, or for what we anticipate or see as God presence or God self, we start stretching or reaching or looking here and looking there and reading this and reading that. But what I discovered is that it came from a much, much deeper place. It was a place of absolute need and desire. It was as though I had been moved to a place within my own being where it was what I had to have. It's what I needed most of all in my life. And so I began to feel an energy shift within my being of how do I have a connection with what I knew to be the all, or a presence that I desperately needed to feel to be a whole being within myself. And the actuality of that questioning or that search was that the question that I was really asking myself is, who am I? Where am I? Where did I go to? What happened to me? You know, why do I feel not myself? Why is there this emptiness, this non-wholeness within myself? So I could feel my energy start to reach out to that, to start calling to it. And what I know now is that it really was the energy in me that was calling to it, but it was my soul that was calling to it. It was the compelling light in me, that force in me, that presence in me that knew that it was time, that knew that it was the moment for me to know myself, to come into myself. And so when we start to seek our higher self, there's this moment of recognition in us where we have moved through forgiveness of ourselves, hopefully, or at least the attempt of it, and learning to have a greater and deeper compassion and forgiveness for others. It all kind of goes hand in hand with the same moment of this reaching out, this seeking to know yourself and to have some guidance and to feel this, what do I want to say, this completeness in and through another part of ourself or another soul, another being, another entity, or God, or whatever you want to label it to be, spirit, love. It's the need to have completeness or feel whole. And I started to do this in so many ways. I've written down a few of them only because this is what was taking place in my life as I was reaching out. And then I'll describe to you the experience of actually the moments of connecting and weaving into the higher self or the soul, the I am presence, as I had experienced it myself. So one of the things is something that many people take as being a bit boring or repetitive, and that is meditation. And I know that you all want to probably beat me up because meditation seems so innate, but it couldn't be more important. Meditation and conversing with your higher self or with your greater presence self is one of the most important things that I could ever state. And I do continuously. I go on and on and on about it because it may sound redundant, but nothing could be more from the truth. In this communion with the light, your light or source of all that you are begins the movement toward the experience with your unlimited and all-knowing self. So it goes hand in hand with your search. You're a human being who's seeking all of these completions within yourself this need to feel whole, to feel loved, to feel forgiven, to feel worthy, to feel complete. And yet our movements also outpicture. So it's like we're also starting the act of actually being that. And that's how we become. So it's like people say, if you want to materialize something in your life, or you want to be rich, act like you are, right? So you start to take on a resonant field, a frequency and a resonance with it. The same is true when you're starting to call to the resonant field or the frequency of your higher self. You start to make the journey towards actually being it yourself in order to make contact with it. This is so very, very vital. And this happens mostly, and I would say more greatly, through our communion and our meditation time. And it can be any kind of meditation that you seek, but talking to it as though it's real, making it alive in your life, knowing everything about it, asking it questions. This begins the movement toward the experience, again, with your unlimited and all-knowing self, especially now, because in this time of integration, this dawning of your vast multidimensional self and all that that entails, in and through your commitment to these sacred contacts and establishing a powerful and solid connection, you build an energy body, or like a Merkaba body, to move in whatever world or dimension you desire. It does take some time for us to reach this point, for constancy and deep respect, joy and honor in these sacred communions is an integral part of the divine weave that all of us are. So as we build on the foundational practices that become our life practices, we strengthen this bond and establish trust and confidence to move forward. So this practice of meditation is what I call like a sacred communion with your presence. Knowing the presence and starting to feel what it feels like. You experience a lot in these moments of non-speaking, of non-thinking, of just reaching it toward one another, feeling one another, hearing one another. It starts to heighten and elevate a lot of our senses and our powers, our gifts, because we enter a vibrational state. And it's really kind of an all state, because if we're unpracticed meditators, for example, then we stumble through a lot of different states and frequencies of experience and being, alphas and, REM states and all kinds of states, and different frequencies and vibrations. So a lot of contact starts to happen in your meditative state, or in these moments and times of what I call Holy Communion, where we're really inviting the presence, the all that we are, the all that is, into this state or experience or light or vibrational place with us. And there the conversation begins. As we do this, that sends a signal out. Now, Betty and I, we've talked about this, you and I, about how when your frequency and your vibration turns or starts to be aware or looking for your higher self or your I am presence or the state of this experience, you emit a signal and a vibrational frequency, a light. It will get the attention. It strikes like, for example, if you pull a string on an instrument, how that vibration just ripples out into the ethers. When you do that, it's like pulling that string. Your vibration goes out and it gets the attention of your higher self or your monadic vehicle or your I am presence, depending upon where you're vibrating from at the moment, what your frequency level is. Now, we do recommend, and there's really no way to really kind of jump over things or skip over it, that the first contact or the first initial relationship that you want to build a really strong core or foundation with is your higher self. So that would be your first introduction or first real solid endeavor as far as the relationship of light goes. So when the ripple goes out and your higher self recognizes, it's like a light turns on in all of time and all of space, and it goes, oh, and it sees you. It sees that the light is turned on. It sees that you're looking at it, and it starts to turn its face to you, so to speak. Okay, there's really not a face, but it turns its face to you, and it is aware now that you're entering into that frequency with it. You're coming online, so to speak. This is also energetic, because that's really all anything is thought and energy and consciousness. So it sees it, it gets the message, and it starts to make steps toward you. The more that you make toward it, it comes closer to you. And the reason for that is because of resonance, right? Everything is resonant field. So it's waiting for you to be able to be in its field and it be with you. So sometimes, and especially in the past, there were compromises in that vibrational field, ways that they could fragment or break it down, or what do I want to say, sort of differentiate the field in some way so that you could have some experience with it for a time. But now, because of our evolutionary process, we've come so far in our advancement that the raising of our fields has become just kind of, how do I want to say this? Very, very high and exceptional for most individuals at this time. So for many of us, our higher selves are already in our vibrational field. We're embodying them as we speak. And there's not that drastic feeling or even vibrational distancing or separation sometimes from it. We're now resonating and residing within the same space with one another. And our thoughts right now, what we're doing is we're trying to assimilate that, and also working at the same time on discerning what that means in our consciousness, what we hear, how do we hear it, how do we know it's our higher self or our other self or our other self or our other self, because we have so many of them right now. So does that make kind of sense to that point?
It does, and if you don't mind, I have a question that is kind of off the wall, but I understand that the earth itself is ensouled, and as the souls are expanding and the multidimensionality continues to grow, I would imagine that earth is doing the same, and that energy is supporting each one of us as we continue to expand and integrate and have that multifaceted experience. As the soul it's like the energies right now seem to be supporting for supernatural experiences that are like in our face sometimes of something's going on. And I have gotten a different upgrade, for example.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, that is very, very valid and true. But I want to, in addition to that, I'd just like to add that the planet, while supporting us, because we're expanding and shifting and she's supporting us, we are also supporting her. So because there's no, how do I want to say this? We're moving into a place we're in this unified field, in a resonant expression that is known to us, okay, that we're embracing. We're beginning to realize that everything is one with us, right? We don't move that it doesn't move, and it doesn't move that we don't experience it. It's all tied together. Everything is knitted together and works off of one another. So just as we're beginning to understand this monadic or this higher self sort of expression or overall mechanism that is directing kind of at the control center, if you will, of our soul actions and soul experiences and expansions, understandings, leanings, we also are tied into greater control centers, okay? So everything is working and operational and functional together. It is all part of the ascension, all right? Because the ascension is all inclusive. It isn't just the earth ascending. It isn't just humans ascending. Everything right now is ascending. And we've talked about that many, many times in the past. The second thing that was super vital, really important, and was part of my experience when all of this was going on with me when I was on my journey or my path to awakening into my higher self, was the training of the mind, okay, or what they call retraining the consciousness, all right? So training the mind on how to focus in the highest way. One of the most important endeavors in our desire to connect to our higher self is to pay particular attention to the things that we put our mind to, all right? It goes hand in hand with that meditation and that communion. It's also our thoughts, okay? What our mind is thinking. What are we reading? What reading materials? What are we putting into ourselves? This starts to help to retrain it, sort of refocus it. In other words, when you're putting in more positivity, you're kicking out the other stuff, right? The other stuff starts to dwindle. It starts to go away. The same with higher frequency and vibration. When we're doing all the things that raise our vibration and our frequency within our physical form, we're also pushing aside, eliminating, it's overcompensating the other energies that were present for the time that we were living before. So you just become what you put in, and that's just the way things work. It's just the natural state of everything. You become it. And it's just that simple, that easy. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have any understanding of this is what you do. It was where my soul, my spirit, my essence led me. So I was definitely guided in all of those things. So the reading materials, language, okay, the language that you use when you speak, paying particular attention to how you say things, what you say, how you use your words. Conversations that you have with others. How is that handled? You know, while you're listening to someone speaking, are you running tapes in the back of your mind that are full of judgment, that are tearing things apart or taking things apart, or way ahead of them or not being present when they're actually speaking to you? Are you really with them? And the reason that that is so important is because, again, that puts you in a state of connection or calling to your higher self. When we are very absolute present with another being, then you're entering and honoring a sacred space, right? You're saying to yourself, which is a high self thing, right? High self, I am present in this absolute moment. And every single thing that comes into this moment with me, it doesn't matter who or what it is, I know is a miracle. I know is magic. I know that it is you. I know it's you. I know it's me. And we're having a holy moment. And whatever it is, I open myself to being aware of what you're saying to me right now, in this moment. The wisdom will always be there. The magic that is in the potential space to unfold is right there, right now, because you acknowledged it, because you witnessed it, because, oh, I'm getting chills as I'm saying this, because you stated that this is your intention. So you put your focus, you rose your vibration into and asked to raise it. You asked to meet your high self. You asked to hear its voice. You asked to be present for that being in that moment as you, okay? So that you can have this holy moment, this holy exchange. That is like, how do I say this? I'm just chilling all over my body right now. This is crazy. That's like asking it for that additional state. You're making an additional statement to your high self of, I'm going the extra mile right here. I'm aware of this too. I'm not just asking to commune with you. I'm not just asking for your help. I'm telling you that I'm doing this. I'm seeing it. I recognize it. I recognize this person. And in this moment, that's what I'm doing. So what happens? It happens. Your high self is right there. The experience, as you've said it, as you've asked it to unfold because you've acknowledged it, is there. It's happening because it can't be any other way. You opened up what they call a sort of a portal that allows an experience of your soul to take place, right? Your soul to come in and its soul to come in. Woo. And in that experience, the two of them meet in love. And whatever is supposed to happen, it may not look like love. It may not be showing itself in third dimensional reality as love. But whatever is supposed to happen in that moment, because you're that light conduit in that second, in that moment with this being. And it is with you. And the two of you bring together the potential and the possibility for that experience to be whatever it is to be that is perfect in that now. And it's a very conscious thing. And that's why the second thing is paying attention and training your mind, because it teaches it how to be present all the time. And the presence is your higher self. It's your I am self. You start to see everything from that state. Every single step you take in your life, every person that you come in contact with, every person on the road, a million people like you and I were talking earlier in a stadium, it doesn't matter what the experience is. It's an experience from the holy inner sight of your being, which is your higher self, your soul, that is expressing. And that is because you are engaged, you're woven, you're active with it, you're speaking to it, you're having your best buddies, you're having a relationship with it in which you've activated its presence in your life, okay? It's an invitation. It's already here now. Before, it had a greater struggle, a little bit more distance to go with us, but we're so close now that you're starting to have this experience. That's why this conversation, these classes, these events, these conferences that you and I are doing, I pray, I hope, because it's my pure intention, that it help people to truly, truly understand where we are right now and how absolutely amazing, how beautiful, how special, how sacred this experience is with our greater self right now, and how much more we have yet to understand about it. So I have to put my eyes back on to see a little bit more of what I wrote here. But so things like, going hand in hand with changing how we think, our consciousness, our mind, is also things like subliminal input. So we want to be aware that, TV, internet, radio, all of these things, even things like music, as much as singing the words to a song or humming them, have an effect on your consciousness, because you're putting in, if you're not conscious or aware of the words that you're singing or the things that you're saying, they're still things that you're planting in there and that you're putting out into the universe. So the reason that I say that is because cleanup can be a real pain when we start putting out things that sort of escape from us in moments of being upset, and we all do, or of anger, or just we lose sight of our higher self for a moment, and we just, are living in reactionary mode. And then you have to run around and clean up everything. You've got to go behind it and call it into transmutation and take care of it. It's like, I don't know, like gangsters have the cleanup guy. What do they call it? The cleaner, right? Who comes in and takes care of all the dirty work, all the stuff that, needs to be hidden away. But this is so important that we understand this point about being aware of every single thought we have and every word we say. It's not an easy thing to do. It's a master thing to do. So it takes time and it takes practice. But we have so much more help now because our higher selves are really, really close and integrative with us at this time, and opening us up to all of the other particles and aspects and souls of ourselves that have a lot of this wisdom and experience for us to draw on. So
we have so many influences in our world of negativity, and we are all out in the world and experiencing a lot of different people who are in their own space and having their own struggles. And I'm guessing that having the conscious awareness of the higher self and that connection to soul and love, as you have every conversation, it goes back to love is everything, that just staying centered helps me to be fully conscious, aware, and go forward in that space despite what's going on. But also, I would guess that at some point there's that radiator effect or radiatory effect of light that can make a difference, because everybody who is in my experience in life has something to share, a lesson for me, and we can all be in our individual spaces, vibrations, supporting the whole.
Right, exactly. That's so beautifully said. Yes. So the other things that I just wanted to make mention of that took place within this time is paying attention to the balancing of all your body systems, right? Your chakras. So that becomes kind of a regular and a rote thing. Many people do it in all kinds of vast different ways. It doesn't matter, meditations or in running, tones or frequencies or whatever through your bodies. Those are all really good things. A very important and transformative tool that I used to use was the violet flame. So I would call that in daily, sometimes 2-3 times a day, just to transmute and transform all of the energies, burn up all negative energies and anything that I was dealing with that I was unaware of or whatever. That would help to raise the vibration. It actually is kind of an accelerating experience because it works very quickly to lift the vibration and the frequency. Making sure that you ground and just light practices, So I think that most spiritual beings, light beings, know what most of these things are. And as I just continued with those things every single day, I began to experience more and more the synchronicities and the magic and the miracles of each and every moment. I mean, the presence was something that never left. It's something that you stay in a state of awareness every second, every minute of your life. There's no other voice that's speaking. Reality becomes very secondary. It's very there, but it's not playing as much on you. Now, an important factor about this connection is that every single one of us has a cord, like a ray of light or a cord that connects us from our I am presence to our heart. And when you're connected through your higher self and then through your higher self into your higher vibratory levels, your ray or this light, this cord is illuminated and strong and powerful and solid. When we begin to lose our focus or stop our practices or become too pulled or tugged into the dimensional state in which we're experiencing, that cord begins to fragment. It begins to disintegrate, to break. It loses a lot of its power, its solidness. And when you lose connection or focus with your higher self, you do start to splinter. We start to go into what is called fragmentic sort of behavior, or fragmentation. And we call them splinters, all right? That's where you start to kind of slip in your vibration, and it's so easy then to succumb to the vibratory energies of whatever world you're experiencing in, whether it's traveling in other dimensions or portals or whatever. You just want to make sure that when you do find this connection to yourself, that you understand that it becomes first, in your life. Because if it's the first thing that you light the candle to, or that you give flame to, or attention to, then it stays lit. It stays strong. It stays powerful. And that will support you through any and all storm or energies or experiences that you have in any plane, anywhere, anytime. I don't know if we want to open up to any questions before we start into, unless you have some, that we start before we go into the walk-in experiences. These kind of all go hand in hand.
If anybody has any questions right now, if you hit on your phone 5-star, that raises your hand on the dashboard, and I can unmute you so you can ask your question. Does anybody have any questions? We'll have an opportunity later for questions if you don't have any now, and I don't see anything, Robin. So if you want to go ahead to the next topic, which I find very, very fascinating. It's certainly not something I have any understanding of, and I was so happy to have the conversations we've had and to try to wrap my brain around all of this.
Well, I'm really glad that you did, because...
I'm sorry. Just a minute. I do see somebody may have a question here. Just a second.
All right. Okay.
Do you have a question?
Happy to take it.
Yeah. Could you hear me?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, my question, and if it gets too far out there, just go on with what you're saying, but, we're talking about our higher self, and a lot is happening. I've heard it like, a beach ball being held underwater, so to speak, and now it's moving faster, and, people are coming into their own higher self, and I could be wrong on this, but how I'm seeing it is that our DNA is opening up to more. You hear that there's 12 strands, but I almost see it like portals just opening and going deeper, and as we go deeper into that, we are more of ourselves, or more is coming back to us. And I guess my question with that is, as this is taking place, how is it connected to soul development? Or do they exist together, or is that a separate conversation?
No, that's a beautiful question. Thank you so much. And that's Sue, isn't it? Who's asking that question?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's a beautiful question, honey. And no, they do play hand in hand. I'm so glad you asked it, because it really is a transitional conversation. The DNA is absolutely connected to the process or the evolution, the ascension of the soul, and it also plays hand in hand with this walk-in experience that we're going to talk about, because let me see, I brought forth something Betty and I were talking about. It did make a mention. Oh, here it is. It talks about soul exchanges and walk-ins are not uncommon. They're becoming more frequent as we shift in human consciousness. So this is kind of playing right to what you were saying, is occurring across the globe. Walk-ins are here to help humanity expand consciousness. You know, we first became aware of the multidimensional aspects of the soul not too long ago. In truth, we're all walk-ins. Souls walk into the body of an infant, or others walk into the body of a teen or an adult if they don't want to actually or don't need the experiences of being a child or being a teenager or a young adult. If you're on a mission, then you can come into the body at a much later date. We're going to talk a lot about the walk-ins, but here's the part that I think is interesting to you, perhaps. And it says that walk-ins visits may be temporary or long-term. Now, what a walk-in is like a soul shift or a soul exchange, or a time when another soul comes in to relieve the soul that is participating in a host. Recent changes in our template, now this is coming from Spirit, what they're suggesting to us is that the templates for Divine Human have been changing, and therefore that has been downloaded into the DNA and has taken physical form, all right? So what you're describing, experiencing lately is exactly, not that, I'm going to back up just a little bit, because I also know that there's a belief out there that our DNA was at one time intercepted and interceded. Now scientists are coming forth just now with very, very historical and geophysical discoveries of that very point, that yes, there was a point in all human history where the DNA, where human beings were interrupted or interfered with. So there's a giant step that in evolution that took place that they believe didn't actually take place. In other words, humans did not evolve from the state that we believe that they were from. They think that there was something that interceded. And as I said, physicists, scientists, geologists, they've all been getting together with these recent discoveries and bringing forth this information onto the earth. It's going to be a little bit hard for some to hear or believe or assimilate for a bit, but I think it's going to catch up. The DNA definitely has been awakened, and it's been awakening for quite some time. There's I'm just going to go about this walk-in information because it might fill in a little bit for you and help answer some of the questions. The New Age, this walk-in concept started kind of in the New Age, and it really was sort of a mystical or strange experience that people used to talk about, and they still do. And it does sort of tickle their ears or gets them quite excited. A lot of people are interested in it. But a walk-in is really nothing more than other soul aspects of a being which are coming to participate in the being's, or the, what I would call the monadic soul, or the oversoul's process to becoming. So, for example, if you've ever had a feeling that you're not quite from this planet or this timeline or dimension, then you might be having this experience. Do you feel like your soul came here to live out a certain experience, and then something happened and you became another person? A lot of people are beginning to talk about this now, and it's a phenomena that really began to be spoken about a long, long time ago in ancient times. But it's been around and been with us through beings such as, Jane Roberts, who writes the Seth books, and he talks a lot about it, and Ruth Montgomery, who wrote Strangers Among Us. But it began sort of in the Asian and Hindi cultures a long time ago. So it's a belief system today. The belief system about it today includes various experiences such as telepathic contact, channeling, extraterrestrial intelligences, and soul merging. So the soul merging, that is where the soul, the original soul, is said to remain in a body while integrating with a new one. Sometimes the walk-in soul enters into an agreement with the walk-out soul. So in other words, they have an agreement. Rather than having a body die in order to release the soul from its incarnation, another soul steps in and picks up where the previous soul left off. Now, this is not saying, oh my goodness, it's some soul invasion or it's something foreign to you or demonic or anything like that. This experience happens so commonly that most of us don't even recognize or realize it anymore. It's so common that the soul exchanges, that it can be a compound soul. You can have many aspects of a soul who have the same intention, same mission, same agenda in a lifetime, but it requires several of its aspects, its learnings, its experiences, other particles of its being, who may be experiencing an alternate lifetime, to bring their experience and their wisdom and to the fore, to be able to help complete a mission or an experience or a journey for this particular soul. There's so many ways that this can take place that it's almost impossible to cover it in the time that we have today, but I may go a little bit over today, and if you guys want to hang with me, that's great. And if you can't, then it will certainly be on the recording. But I feel like this is an important conversation to have. Do you have any questions or anything, Betty, at this point? Anything that's speaking to you?
No, I'm just enthralled.
Okay. Okay, so for example, a walk-in can be a fragmented aspect of a soul that comes home and uniting with its soul essence in a body, such as in the case of the soul retrieval work. So many of us have had either personally experienced soul retrievals or we do them in our healing work. But you know that you go in search of like particles or fragments or splinters of a soul that may have broke off through either trauma or a near-death experience, an illness, an abusive situation. There's lots of reasons that this can happen, just something, sometimes an experience just so overwhelming that it can't stay in the body, so it just flies out of it. And I myself personally have experienced this at one time in my own life. So I actually felt myself roll out of my body. What came forth in its place, I mean, your guess is as good as mine. So it's become who I am and what I am today. So I know that I have had an experience like that. And this has been so fun to be able to share because I want to take the mystery and maybe some of you won't think that's fun anymore, but of the term walk-ins, because that did have such a mysterious sort of overtone to it for such a long time. But it really is just part of our soul coming here to get what it's here to get. And it will always do that, no matter how it has to dream it up or act it out. So, for example, an exchange or an entry of a spirit or a soul into a living body in the past could have taken place when the body was sleeping or unconscious. It can take place in a drug state, when under anesthesia, alcohol, drinking, or in an emotional distress, a near-death experience, a suicide attempt, and so on. So maybe you're getting the picture that this can take place in just about any altered state of consciousness where your soul takes the opportunity or sees that as an advantage for them to seize that moment, to be able to help the soul in state. And I put quotations around that, in state, meaning in the body. So in each case, there are clear indications that a new or different soul or fragmented soul or a spiritually advanced soul has entered a body, whether, now this is the really crazy part, dead or alive. And this is where I think a lot of people in the world are getting this zombie sort of apocalypse thing that they're talking about. Again, we're not talking about souls that are lower or less than or negative or have any ill intent. These are always experiences where one particle of the self or of the soul has agreement with the other. It is not invaded. Okay, it's not that that has never happened in any case with people, because it has, but for the most part, almost all soul shifts, soul exchanges, walk-in experiences are with a higher evolved part of the self or the soul that comes into the body in order to be of help. Now, another thing that's really important to understand is that when this takes place, the higher soul that is taking over the other soul's experience must absolutely honor and complete its process or its journey before taking on its own. So that is also a stated condition when you do a soul shift like that. In case there are clear indications that a new or a different soul or fragmented soul or a spiritually advanced soul has entered a body, we can explore more later, but for now it's important to mention that because we as humans have undergone so many evolutionary shifts since first awakening to this phenomena, we're in present today very different human beings. And again, this goes back to Stu's question about the DNA and about the opening and about these different potential portals or even universes, other parallel probable realities that are coming into existence, the potentials of the human soul to experience. These are taking place because we're in a very, very different state of being now. This may mean that the way in which we used to experience a walk-in soul or a soul shift or soul exchange, etc., might change. Question? Are we doing good?
We're doing great. There's so much here. There's so much for the brain to comprehend.
I know. And it really is. But that's what we were referring to in the last teleconference about the changes that were going to be taking place and how absolutely vast and potentially realized the soul has become. So we have no limits on us now. I mean, the sky is the limit is definitely the rule now. this is a huge transformation and growth that we've been addressing in our conversations, you and I, and many others. For example, the soul can exchange a particle value. Now, this is really fascinating. So, for example, say you had an experience in a certain lifetime, and in that lifetime, you had a particle of your being in that lifetime that was shared with another soul. Now, that means that that soul, which is not your soul, but that soul experienced with you because you shared a particle within that experience for whatever contractual arrangement or agreement it was. So that's how you get, that's how we sometimes can explain why so many people think they were Mary Magdalene or Jesus or any rich and famous person in the world, right? So many say that they were or that they are. It's because there's usually a strand, a splinter, a particle of that light that you shared. So you have that to be able to go back to for the full memory experience and relative reality of that other soul expression. So when you have a soul who becomes overwhelmed, or maybe it's even completed a mission or not completed a mission, it's just become depressed or suicidal, and it decides that it's just too much for it, it's not going to continue in this world, and chooses to step out, then you can, sharing a particle value with another soul, that soul, if it's aware, can take over your experience with you as well for you. It may not be of your monadic soul group, but because you have that relative particle that you shared, you now have a connection in which it can actually come in and support your journey and help complete for you. And this happens many times. It's very fascinating. And again, I myself have had this experience. So that I thought was absolutely amazing. If there's anybody out there who has any questions or, wants to at any point interrupt any of this and ask a question, I welcome them, so you can raise your hand.
The one comment I have is that the information that you are sharing seems that those aspects that are considered, the terminology as walk-ins, are all supportive and very beneficial for, back to the previous conference call, the soul's mission is to learn and grow.
Yes.
And so the support, so all these aspects that are showing up in a supportive role, it's like, wow, all those unseen energies that I don't have a conscious awareness of, it's like, wow, thank you.
Yes, absolutely. And I think part of what speaks to our growth as evolutionary beings right now is that a lot of these, if you were to give names to each of these souls, could be a lot of our guides and our mentors and our angelics or higher selves or guardians on the other side, or masters. We are coming to a place where we're understanding that, devoid of the names, of labeling any of our energies or aspects of our souls, we're sort of merging, right? Doing the soul merge into the space of understanding our oneness, our unity with each other. How absolutely amazing we are, that our potential of this is to understand this about one another, because even our exchanges here in these groups with each other, the way in which we're doing this, also speak to us having a shared relative particle of experience together with one another in this now, in this moment, in this life, in this journey. So it connects us, right? it brings us into this unified field with each other that we can actually potentialize at some point in our journeys, future, past, whatever, simultaneously, and use to the benefit of our soul growth, whichever soul that is. And when one benefits, they all benefit. So this is so, I'm doing my best to be able to bring this through in the way that they presented it to me. But I know that I'm just like barely scratching the surface of this, because it is just beyond me, actually, truly. And I'm trying my best to kind of hold it to a place where we can kind of all understand it and share it a bit. So as we stated before, it's really not that uncommon a practice anymore. This is happening much, much more. And like we said, with the higher self now embodied, we're starting and beginning to understand that it's a part of the multidimensional experience. The fact that we can actually have many souls within us all at once, experiencing, sharing experience, and maybe even on some kind of a mission, something that it's come here to do is so amazing, but absolutely possible and probable. I will just say that, very probable. And in fact, it's been spoken of that in our journeys here on the earth, almost through all times and all advancements, every time we do an evolution, there is a very advanced soul that comes in under the guise of a walk-in experience, who comes to be sort of a way shower or a leader in the world. It begins to bring its energies in, to hold a space, to be very present, and starts in and through its collective high soul. Direct, if you will, events that start to unfold. Some of these would be like Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Jesus, many others, Buddha, other entities that have come into the world at all different times of evolutionary process. So this is just touching on some of the things. We talk about the potential for some walk-in experiences. The host may have souls that walk alongside it. They're called companion or braided souls. Those souls are souls that hold knowledge and abilities or gifts and guidance, advice, but they're woven into your body vehicle, your soul with you. In other words, when is needed, you can switch. It can come and go and come and go, like a revolving door almost, as you are needed to complete a certain endeavor in your life. When I first began opening, I was told that by Spirit that at certain times in my life, my higher self or a certain being that was working with me at the time would actually leave and another one would come forth, because it would be there to help me through a certain specific time in my life, and then it would no longer be required and another one would come forth. And sometimes they told me that even with higher self. So I thought that was really fascinating, but now I see that this is kind of what they were talking about, is that we just needed to conceptualize it or understand it in a different way at that time. So that's what we did. And now that we're becoming much, much more evolved and expansive in our consciousness, we're able to take in more and understand this. It's like we serve pablum to children because that's all that they can, assimilate when they're little, but you start to feed solid food to adults when they can finally take that in and process it. So there's another one called a placeholder. This was really interesting to me, a placeholder soul. And that's a soul that can come in to allow the freedom of the soul that's in the body to go into another dimensional state to complete a mission or an assignment. And when it's finished, it can return. So there are souls that, and they're very high souls as well, usually very high souls, that come in and just hold place with all the consciousness, the memories. They just hold space and energy until the other returns. And now, what a lot of people are experiencing, and maybe some of you that are healers and body workers, is that there is a natural return that's happening of a lot of particleized or fragmented souls that left in trauma or through these illnesses or separation type of experiences, abuse, battery, whatever, that are returning, and they're returning all on their own. It's fascinating. I mean, it's not something that we expected to happen, because we used to have to work lifetimes sometimes to even get these souls, to find them and bring them back so you felt some degree of wholeness. They're all starting to come in. Again, I think this is, again, due to the awakening of the DNA, the awakening of our understanding of a soul and a monadic soul. And just to give you an example, it describes, it says a monad supplies the life force, love, and attention needed to maintain an embodied soul's existence on Earth, as well as in non-physical realms. Your monad is responsible for your evolution, as it ensures that all aspects of your being are intact. One monad contains 12 oversouls. Think about that.
Wow.
One monad contains 12 oversouls, and an oversoul has 12 personalities. That's 144 aspects. That's interesting, the 144. So this goes back again to Sue's comment about how every time a strand of DNA opens up, awakens, it is exponentially increases our dimensional experiences and our capacity to be the light beings that we've come here to be.
Wow.
So I think that's probably a really good place to rest today. I could go so much more deeply into all of this, but maybe we'll save it for another time. If people have questions after, they can write us too, and that would always help us and feed us for other talks if they want to talk about it more.
Sue, I wanted to ask, did you have any follow-up question, or did Robin answer your question?
She answered a lot of it, but as she was talking, my little wheels in my brain were going round and round, and I was thinking, like, conscious level, I know meditation helps that, but to be more proactive in your life as far as, you know, being more aware or calling in maybe what you need at the time. I mean, is there a way to engage with these walk-ins, you know, depending on, you know, maybe what you're working on, what you're trying to understand, or whatever it is in life? Or is it just something that comes about because of a pre-planned agreement? Or are we getting to a place now where consciously we can engage with these walk-ins and, you know, ask them for some assistance or assist? Sounds like it's a two-way street, really.
Well, that's a really good question. I think there's a lot of, it's hard to answer that in a pat way, because usually, under the normal understanding of a walk-in, when one walks in, the other walks out, right? So there's not really conversation. If you are aware that you're a compound walk-in, or you're having a braid experience, or you're aware that you're having like a fragmented experience where you hear many expressions or voices within your own being. You know, I know that people used to call that, you know, like Sibylish or multi-personality problems, but actually that can be an extreme state of what's happened. And it isn't impossible for a negative entity to take over or possess a body. It can happen, but under normal circumstances, that never happens, okay? It's very bizarre, very different, very, you know, unusual experience, especially when you're aware or conscious. So if you think you're a walk-in, and if you're aware that there's you're sharing with other soul aspects, then of course you can have conversation with them. It'd be like talking to your counsels. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, makes sense.
Oh, right, because it's higher aspects of you. There are other particles of your light that are supporting you. So they're obviously there to do something with you. So yes, I would say yes. And depending upon the degree of the agenda, I'm going to use that word instead of just mission all the time, because it's not always a mission. Sometimes it's just what you want to accomplish, or a creative endeavor of some kind. Yes, you can and probably should converse with them. Again, it might be, you know, we've used really different words in the past, and that would be like, what do they call that when you get together and, I'm losing my human language here. When you do not mentoring, it's when you get together and do a council or to create something together. I'll think of it in a minute. I know I will. I'm sorry, I lost it. But you do that when you're sleep state programming too, where you call on your own soul, your counsels, your higher self, you know, the ones that work with you. This is no different, because these beings, I think, we're becoming high enough in our own vibratory experience to use that understanding now to pull in or relate to higher aspects of our souls that are just with us now, because we're no longer individualized. As we come into unification, unified soul experiences, as we go into this oneness and into higher states of our expression, we no longer fragment out like that. So they're returning back all of these lights of you, these splinters and aspects of ourselves that have been off on their own journeys, you know, having their own experiences, but are still us. So now they're us. We've been integrating them and trying, or I shouldn't even say trying. We have been doing very well with acclimating and integrating these particles for some time now. We've maybe seen them as something different or interpreted them, pardon me, in a different way, but they are really us. So yes, I know that was I don't know if that was clear. Are you still with me, Sue?
Yeah, it's clear.
Okay. I don't know if I was saying it very clear, because it's, like I said, it's not a super easy, I can't give you just a direct yes or no. It would depend on the condition of the soul exchange walk-in, what kind it is, and if you're saying to me that you believe that you are or having that experience, then I could speak to that. But if you're not aware of it, then I would say that if the soul exchange happened, then you might have left. I would venture to say for almost all of us now that more likely we are to have a soul merge than a soul exchange. Does that make sense? Where they are all coming in rather than any of them going out anymore. And maybe I should have led with that in the conversation of walk-ins, but it didn't really dawn on me until just this moment.
Robin,
that
does
we're
that
really...
have something?
Go ahead.
Does that have something to do with the fact that my belief is that the heart capacity has increased, and therefore it allows more of this connection because the capacity is greater all the way around?
Yes, absolutely. And again, all of that goes back to the awakening of the DNA, because when the DNA opens, it affects everything in us and our consciousness and our reality. They both go hand in hand. It's all the same. It's all connected, right? So yes, of course the heart is expanding because it's moved actually to another place. It's now here. And that's your cosmic heart. It's present. It's way blown open, hopefully. And the more conscious that you become, the DNA is just representative of our degree of experiencing the level or the dimensional, the reason it has to awaken, let me see if I can say this properly. Its openness, the DNA, each time it awakens another genetic encoding or another strand, it again sends out, right? It's like ding, it's like pulling that string again, and it vibrates out, and another dimensional experience of us is now present.
Okay.
Right? So again, we're not only doing this thing, because this is how we always see it, it's the going out from ourselves. I'm waving my hands in case, because I know none of you can see me, but Betty can. I'm waving my hands outside of myself, but really it's that we're integrating it. It's now in us. We have access to it. It is us. And this is what I'm speaking of when I talk about the limitlessness, no boundaries. And every time one of those opens again, then we're, but we're way down the road now. So what Sue is envisioning, what she's seeing and picking up on, of course, is exactly goes relative to what we're talking about in our advanced evolutionary state and how the soul is expressing right now. Dun, dun, dun.
Beautiful, beautiful.
So, I don't know. Did that make sense to all of you? I hope
it makes
so.
sense to me. Sue, hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah.
Did you have any follow-up?
No. Mm-mm.
No. We'll talk later. It's always such a joy, and you always have such good, challenging questions. But I hope that when you hear the recording again, that this all made a little bit of sense, and that you can kind of see that none of these things that we're discussing are really separate from each other. We're starting to see that line really blur. There's no separation anymore, and we can continue to compartmentalize and go into the separation and diagnose or talk about those things, and that's all fine. That's all good, and it's fun too. But hopefully, when we experience the beingness or the relationship as our higher self and our I am presence, we'll begin to all of these experiences will become very normal as a part of how we express from here on out. And we'll find ourselves less and less moving into that separateness anymore. So new things will take its place, and it's just really exciting and I think really fun. So I'd love any comments or notes from any of you. You have them afterward, or to Betty too. It always feeds and helps us to find new subjects that you might want to hear about or talk about or give us input for. I'm always here for you. I love you all, and thank you for coming and sharing with us today. Is there
Yes,
anything
thank
you'd like to
you, everybody. Thank you, Robin, so much. This is so much. I really appreciate the insights.
Thank you. Have a blessed day, everybody.
Bye.